Honeybees gather pollen from many floral sources. Some of these sources may be contaminated from direct pesticide application or from systemic insecticides within treated plants. Pollen taken back to the hive is stored and used as food for developing brood. Damage to an individual bee may vary greatly compared to the eventual damage to the hive. This damage is related to the toxicity of a pesticide and the application method. For example, a pesticide sprayed directly on a honeybee may kill her quickly, and thus she will not take any of the chemical back to the hive. However, a low-level systemic insecticide prevalent in a local pollen source may not kill immediately, but may result in pollen being stored in the hive and used for feeding the brood. It is unknown at this time whether these persistent, low-level pesticides affect brood development, brood mortality, queen reproduction, and/or queen mortality. It is known, however, that multiple low-level pesticides have a synergistic effect, making them more lethal in combination with each other than they are when found separately. Sampling pollen will occur concurrently with the USDA National Honeybee Pest and Disease Survey demonstrated in another video. This protocol is a supplement to those initial sampling descriptions. In the sampling kit, there are 8 wooden sampling sticks in a Ziploc bag, a plastic container, and a labeling sticker for each apiary's pollen sample. The sticker should be placed on the plastic container before sampling. As in the National Honeybee Pest and Disease Survey, 8 hives should be sampled. Sampling pollen from active hives can be done in several ways. The following sampling routine was developed to demonstrate the easiest method to collect the pollen while sampling for pests and diseases as part of the USDA National Honeybee Health Survey. The pollen must be collected from fresh pollen, not entombed pollen, which is pollen covered by propolis, and not from bee bread, which is pollen processed by the bees that includes honey and other enzymes. You will be able to distinguish fresh pollen from these other types by the dry, grainy, and sometimes colorful cells usually surrounding brood frames. Bee bread appears moister and has a dull color compared to fresh pollen. A minimum of 3 grams of pollen must be collected from the 8 hives sampled within the apiary. To collect 3 grams, it is advised to sample 4 cells from each of the 8 hives. Now let's begin. After you have taken the honeybee sample from the brood area for the National Honeybee Pest and Disease Survey, look at the frames you have pulled to see if there are any cells with fresh pollen in them. If so, take one end of a sampling stick and insert it all the way to the bottom of the cell and rotate the stick all the way around the cell, scraping the pollen as you go. You may damage adjacent cells as the stick is slightly larger than a cell, but this is normal. As you lift the stick from the cell, move slowly as the dry pollen is crumbly and may fall off the stick. Place the pollen in the plastic container by scraping the stick on the side of its opening. Make sure that the pollen falls into the container. Repeat in at least 4 cells per hive to gather the 3 grams of pollen needed. If the frame you removed for sampling does not have pollen in it, set it aside and try to find another frame with pollen in the hive. If you cannot find any pollen in the hive, move to the next hive for sampling. If you cannot gather pollen from a particular hive, take extra samples from the remaining hives to collect the required total of 3 grams. Dispose of the sampling sticks in the trash. They should not be used again. Once all hives have been sampled, close the container, make sure it is labeled, and place it with the other alcohol samples for shipping to Beltsville, Maryland. Thank you for your participation in this important component of the USDA National Honeybee Pest and Disease Survey.